And Charlie and I were ready for this. We figured, okay, there's going to be an enormous discussion over in the officers' mess, going to be lots of excitement, and there are going to be lots of phone calls. So come on, let's go and relieve the sergeant at the switchboard. There were two on duty there, a sergeant and a corporal. And we told the boys to get out and take a smoke. And Charlie sat in to be the operator, and the switchboard was very quiet. And I went to the nearest extension. And if the call was going to be for the general, I was going to be the general. If it was for the aide-de-camp, I was going to be the aide-de-camp. If it was going to be for the intelligence officer, I was going to be the IO. It would have been fine, except if one of these officers had been at the officers' mess, unbeknownst to the caller, and then found out to be there subsequently. However, as luck would have it, no calls came. The discussion raged and raged, but no calls. And then Charlie and I looked at each other. Uh-oh, next thing, the 6 o'clock news. They'll be listening for the 6 o'clock news. How can we stop that? Well, let's go down and pull the main switch on the power plant that powers the whole headquarters. And I figured, well, we'd have to climb the fence to do that. That, as officers and gentlemen, might be going just a shade too far. So, we didn't do it. But as amazing luck would have it, at 6 o'clock, the announcer came on and says, due to circumstances entirely beyond our control, we're unable to bring you the 6 o'clock news at this time. We'll continue with our recorded music. Well, that did it. Kerr said to the doubtful officers, there, you see, they don't know what to say now. He says, I swear to God, this is exactly what I heard. Well, the debate raged all that night. Indeed, one or two of the senior officers got in their cups, and now you're blinking.
Yeah, keep going. We're running near the end of the tape.
Oh, I see. Yeah, well, that's that blinking is not necessarily lack of light. Then it's near the end of the tape. Anyway, the one of the officers called a bunch of the junior officers together and says, "Now look, we got to keep our sanity. I'll tell you exactly why Mackenzie King is doing this to us. Is he's having an election. And he knows damn well he's going to lose that election. And the reason he's going to lose that election is the soldiers' vote. And he's doing this to get back even with the soldiers who are going to put him out of office. And that's why he's making us find our own way home." Others said, "Oh, this is absolute nonsense. It can't be true. We're going to have verification from Army headquarters." But argue. And not many people had much sleep that night. The next morning, in the breakfast room, I stood in a chair in the mess and announced to the entire assembly of officers that, look, the report that they heard the previous night from Don Kerr was totally false, because I was the one that gave the false report. And I quoted it verbatim. I said, this is what Don heard. I sat down, and half the officers believed me, and I got some stony stares, and the other half wouldn't believe me. There were messages sent. As a matter of fact, I got a message from Canadian military headquarters in London, England, that the word had gotten back that far about this lark that had been pulled at 2nd Canadian Corps Signals headquarters. And I got messages about they could get together with our team. They knew where there was a navigable ship, and they knew where there were barges that we could tie behind that ship, and by gosh, we could get a whole bunch of them in home that way. The fun went on for some time, but there were 3 of the colonels who never spoke another word to me. They would pass me and look in the opposite direction until the end of the war. And I'm sure if any of them are alive today, they hate my guts for the damn fools they made of themselves as a result of the lark that Charlie Shoup and I pulled on them. In fact, we got such a reputation for it that our commanding officer, Colonel Terry North, whenever his unit was going to put on any kind of a reception that was going to involve high brass, he always came to Charlie and myself and says, "Now I want you fellas to put on some kind of entertainment, some kind of a lark." So we got ourselves a reputation for being fun lovers, and I guess it comes by it naturally, because my dad was that kind of a sort of a guy. I think I told you earlier about one of his stunts about raising money with Ford Spark coil.
Okay, alrighty, we're gonna change tapes,
Okay,
take a break.
tape changing time, break time.
What's this one here? Camping with John and the visit of the...
Of the bear. Well, don't you
oh,
remember that?
I remember
Okay.
that.
You made me promise when I came back from overseas that I would take you out on a camping trip. And boy, we're going to do it fairly comfortably. And we gathered all the gear necessary, and we put the canoe up on top of the car, and we put everything in the trunk of the car,
I
in the
remember
back
you-
seat of the car.
You wouldn't go out on that trip until I had learned how to portage that darn canoe.
Why, sure.
And I had to practice
Aye.
carrying a canoe around Loon Lake.
That's right, that's right, that's
And I had to
right.
get the harness on and everything.
Well, I've got the yoke downstairs that we used for that.
To carry the
measure,
canoe.
To carry the canoe. Anyway, it was much easier than back in the days when I used to go out on canoe trips, because we could drive around the lake and up an old mining camp trail, until we came to the stream I wanted to get into. So I drove the car there, and we stopped. We got out and laboriously loaded the canoe, and boy, there was only about that much freeboard when we had the canoe all loaded up. And you and I started paddling, and we paddled, maybe 100 yards up the stream, and came to a turn, and there, facing us, was a beaver dam. So we had to unload the canoe, carry everything up over the beaver dam, portage the canoe up over the beaver dam, set it down in the pond up above the beaver dam, load it all up again, and start paddling. And we paddled across this pond and around the inlet to the pond, and around another corner, another beaver dam. Well, we did that 5 times before we got to Twin Lake, which is where our destination was. We never did get to Twin Lake. We got to Allen Lake. By the time we paddled across Allen Lake, both you and I were so pooped, we were dead tired, that we beached the canoe, we unloaded it, we set up the tent, we had a little fun target practicing with the 303, and it's the first time you'd ever fired that caliber of weapon.
Had a real kick to it.
Oh, did it ever? It backed you up 3 feet every time you pulled the trigger. And we made our supper, had a good meal, and we got into bed. And, we hadn't really prepared the ground where we pitched the tent well enough. And I'll swear it was an oak tree that had to be growing up through the middle of my spine.